Hello students, welcome to my class on critical reasoning. Today I will be discussing the toughest type of CR questions, which is assumption. To make the best use of the session, I suggest you do two things. Number one, go through my theory sessions on critical reasoning. The link to the session is given on the description below. Number two, create a free sign-up account on our website and try the exercises before you go through the video. The process to sign up for the free account is given in the link below. Now that you would have done both the things, let's start the session. Hi students, welcome to the practice exercise on assumptions. I will discuss a few questions here. Of these, the first three questions I have already discussed in my theory class on logical reasoning. So if you want, you can directly skip and come to the fourth question. All right. So this is the first question on the screen. And the technique which I shared with you in my first class on assumption question is, before you go to the option choices, try to pre-think what could be the correct answer, because it's an assumption question. That means the argument is dependent on something which is missing. So if you are logically sound, you can always pre-think it. All right. So this is the first question. Can you pre-think the answer? Yes, we can. See the conclusion drawn in the first sentence. So the conclusion drawn in the first sentence is most of the private plane traffic would be forced to use outlying airfields. This is the conclusion. And what is the premise? If airspace around centrally located airports were restricted to private planes equipped with radar. All right. So centrally located airport, either it's commercial airlines or private planes. The condition on private planes is it should have with radar. Therefore, these private planes will not be allowed here, centrally located airports, right? So the criteria was private planes should have radar, and therefore they would be forced not to use this. So which means what? The assumption is most of the private planes do not have a radar. So you can pre-think it. Detail I've already discussed in my theory class, so you can go there. Here I'm just discussing the question, guys, and applying the theory. Okay. So which one would be the correct answer? The correct answer is this. Most private planes that use centrally located airports are not equipped with radar. So this we can always pre-think. Question number two. Also, I'm not showing you the choices first because I want you to pre-think and then show you the choice. Also, my assumption is that you've already gone through our portal and attempted this exercise on your own, and now you are solving the questions with me. Okay. All right. So what is the conclusion here? The conclusion is cabinet making is not art, right? So conclusion is cabinet making is not art. And the premise is cabinet makers must have an eye for practical utility. So you can see there is a connection. CM has been linked, or cabinet making has been linked twice. Practical utility and art. Link between which two variables is missing? Practical utility and art. So this is the assumption. Look at what will be a strong argument. Cabinet makers must have an eye for practical utility. Anything that has practical utility cannot be called art. Therefore, cabinet making is not art. So this makes sense, right? So you can always pre-think. So there were three variables: cabinet making, practical utility, and art. Cabinet making was linked twice. So the missing link was between practical utility and art. That is what an assumption is. Look at the option choices. An object is not an art object if its makers pay attention to the object's practical utility. We can always pre-think this, right? So second, D is the correct answer. Let's come to question number 3. All right. If you're going through the questions, you can pause the video so that I don't interrupt your thinking attempt, and then, play the video again. Okay. So what is the conclusion here? The conclusion here is intuition is more effective. This is the conclusion, guys. Therefore, intuition is more effective. And what is the premise? Can you identify the premise? What is the main reason which the author has used to come to this conclusion? The main reason is top managers use more of intuition. So again, can you identify the three variables? Top manager, intuition, and effective. See, intuition is linked twice. So connection is missing between which two variables? Top managers and effective, right? So the assumption is that top managers are effective. Right now, this argument doesn't make sense. Top manager use intuition in majority of the decisions. Therefore, intuition is more effective. Something is weak. How can you convert this into a strong argument? Top manager use more of intuition. Top managers are effective. Therefore, intuition is effective, right? So the link between this and this has to be established. So the answer was this. All right. Question number 4. This is the question number 4. I'm showing you the option choices, right? But try to pre-think and figure out what is the missing premise. An assumption is nothing but a missing premise. All right. Go through the question, pre-think, and then come to the choices. So what do you think is the correct answer? All right. So let me pre-think it with you. Ahmed's conclusion follows logically if which of the following is assumed. So first of all, we need to know what is Ahmed's conclusion. Ahmed's conclusion is this. Early entomologist was wrong. So whatever the early entomologist said, he was wrong. So what did the early entomologist say? Ants carrying particles to neighboring ant colonies and inferred that ants were bringing food. So if he was wrong, basically Ahmed is saying that ants were not bringing food to their neighbors. This is what Ahmed is concluding, that ants were not carrying on with, were not bringing food to the neighbors. Okay. And what is his premise? That ants were were emptying their own colony dumping site. So this is what it is. So ants were carrying stuff from the dumping site. Therefore, ants were not carrying food particles to their neighbor. So पहले तो जो हमने सीखा है उसको apply करो. देखो, ants, dumping site and food, 3 variables are there. Ant has been connected twice. किसके बीच में linking missing है? Link missing है. Your dumping site and food. So the assumption is dumping site does not have any food in it, and that's why ants were not carrying food particles, right? Just to give you a simple example, let's say Abhishek sir. So Abhishek sir. So let's say winters, I distribute my clothes to let's say poor people. So Abhishek distributed clothes from his let's say drawing room wardrobe or drawing room almirah. Therefore, Abhishek would not have distributed any jeans. So what is the conclusion? I would not have distributed any jeans. What is the premise? I distributed clothes only from my drawing room almirah. So what is the assumption? The assumption is my drawing room almirah does not have any jeans. That is what I did not say that, but that is an important premise. So this is what it is here, right? So now the answer for this is C. Ant dumping sites do not contain particles that could be used as food. Okay, so ye hai. Let's go to another question. Question number 5. All right, pre-think. You can pause. I'm directly coming to the answer. Look at the option choices here. So the correct answer here is D. The correct answer here is D. Look at the conclusion. Tasmanian tigers do not exist, right? They've gone extinct, right? This is what the conclusion is. They do not exist. And what is the premise? Because they cannot be seen. So it's like a statement if you were to say that Abhishek sir mainly teaches in Delhi. He is not to be seen for 2 years in Delhi. That means Abhishek sir would have passed away. Is tarah ka statement hai, right? So Abhishek sir used to teach or teaches only in Delhi. He is not to be seen in Delhi for the last 2 years. That means Abhishek sir would have passed away. So assumption kya hai isme? The assumption is that you are assuming that Abhishek sir did not move to any other place. That is what the assumption is, or cannot move to any other place. So if he cannot move to any other place and he is not in Delhi, that means he would have passed away. Then it makes sense, right? So the correct answer here is this. The Tasmanian tiger did not move and adapt to a different region in response to the loss of habitat. You are assuming this, right? Because they might have lost their habitat, but if they could have moved to some other place, right, and adapted there, they would have still been there. But you are concluding because I cannot see them in their natural habitat, that means they are no longer there. So which means you are assuming they could not adapt to some other place. All right. Okay. Now this is a different question. Till now, the question that we have done was different, and this is different. Can you figure out what is the difference in this question? The question is here, and these are the option choices. These are the option choices. Yeah. Okay. So let us pre-think. First of all, understand how is this question different from the question that we have done till now. Till now, we have used to the format, the structure in which a criteria was given. Just like in my first class, the criteria was, let's say, to get into SRCC, you need 99%, right? So to get into SRCC, the criteria was given 99%. And then they used to conclude about something. Therefore, Raman did not get into SRCC, right? So we are used to this kind of a sentence structure in which they give us a criteria. What is the criteria here? That to get into SRCC, you need 99%. Then they conclude about someone without giving us information about that person's performance on the criteria. So they did not tell us whether how much did Raman score. Ye hame nahi given hai ki how much did Raman score. This is not given to us. But they are concluding about Raman. What did they conclude about Raman? That Raman did not get into SRCC. So what do we have to assume? We have to assume this part, which is Raman would not have scored 99%, would have scored less than 99%. So we are used to this kind of question, right? Now this question is different. How? Look at this one. Here the criteria was given. To be a part of executive board, if you want to be in executive board, there were two criteria. First, you need to have an undergraduate degree. Okay. You need to have undergraduate degree. And the second criteria was felony should not be there. You should not have been convicted. So these were the two criteria. Okay. Now we are used to a question type where they would have concluded about some person that this person can be in executive board or cannot be in executive board without telling us how did he or she fare in these two criteria. Now this question is different because so far as Manu is concerned, they tell us that Manu with both a bachelor and a master degree. So he passed this, right? He passed this, but he was also convicted. He failed in the second criteria. So what can we conclude now? We could have definitely concluded, therefore, Manu cannot be a part of executive board. It makes sense, makes complete sense because he failed on one of the criteria. So he cannot be a part of executive board, but they do not conclude that. Instead, they conclude that he cannot be accepted for the position of executive administrator. Therefore, he cannot be an executive administrator. Now you should feel cheated. You should feel betrayed. ये तो हमको बोला था कि these criteria, if you fail, you cannot be a part of executive board. But instead of concluding this, you're concluding, therefore, he cannot be a part of executive administrator, right? This is like saying, to get into SRCC, you need 99%. Raman scored less than 99%. Therefore, Raman cannot be a part of Delhi University's cultural festival. Therefore, Raman cannot be a part of Delhi University's cultural festival. Now, this won't make sense because if at all I know Raman will not get admission into SRCC, but you're not concluding that. You're concluding he cannot be a part of cultural festival. So which means there has to be a link between what we could have concluded and what is concluded. So the relationship is, the assumption is, to be a part of Delhi University's cultural festival, you have to be a part of SRCC, right? So similarly, the assumption here is only a person who can be in executive board can be a part of executive administrator or can become an executive administrator, right? So when in this type of question, the link between what you could have concluded is to be established with what is concluded. ठीक है, तो हम एग्जीक्यूटिव एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर के बारे में कुछ नहीं बोल सकते थे, बट हम बोल सकते थे कि वो ईबी में नहीं है, पर उसने कंक्लूड करा है ईए के बारे में. सो विच मींस ओनली candidates eligible for appointment to executive board can be accepted for the position of executive administrator, right? ये अभी तक के क्वेश्चन से डिफरेंट है, तो क्वेश्चन नंबर 6 को आप you can mark it. It's different from what we've done till now. Question number 7. Question number 7, right? Here, first of all, you need to understand what is the conclusion, right? I'll show you the option choices. Pause it, attempt it, come back to the video. All right. Okay. Now, the conclusion is there such a prohibition would be unfortunate. Look at the chain of event. Why? Because they are not allowed. They will not be able to earn livelihood for 3 years. Why? Because they would not be allowed to be a lobbyist. It's like me saying that, okay, if cricketers are banned, cricketers should not be banned from becoming a commentator. Why? Because if they are banned to become commentator once they retire for 3 years, they will not be able to earn any source of livelihood. They would not have any source of livelihood, and this would be unfortunate. So what are you assuming here? We are assuming that this cricketer can only earn livelihood by becoming a commentator. He could do something else also, right? He could be, let's say, a coach. He could start his own academy. But for this to be unfortunate, I have to assume that he cannot earn his livelihood through any other means. So that is an assumption here, which is option number D. So option number D is the correct answer here. Let's go to the final question of today's exercise. Now, this question is also different from what we have done till now, right? So what would you mark? What answer would you mark for this question? Just go through it, pause it, come back to the video. All right. Okay, so I said this question is different. So first of all, let's understand how is this question different. Abhi tak, whatever questions we've done, there was one premise and there was one conclusion, right? But this question is different. How? Let me give you an example first. Let's say if I make a statement that, okay, last night, I completed the entire season. I completed the entire season of Money Heist. Therefore, I slept late. Because of this, I got up late. Due to this, I missed my CR class, my critical reasoning class, and therefore I will not understand the topic. Therefore I do not understand the topic. Sorry for the bad writing, guys. Understand the topic. Okay. Now देखो how this is different. In this case, the first one, last night I completed the entire series of Money Heist. Therefore, I slept late. So this is premise 1 and this is conclusion 1. So because I watched the entire season of Money Heist, I slept late. Now conclusion 1 becomes premise for conclusion 2. So now this conclusion 1 is a premise for second conclusion. So because I slept late, therefore I got up late. So this is conclusion 2 and conclusion 1 becomes premise 2. Now look at this, conclusion 2 becomes conclusion 3. Due to this, I missed my CR class. So this is conclusion 3. I missed my CR class. Why? Because I got up late.
And finally, you get a conclusion, which is, therefore, I will not, or I do not understand this topic. So my main conclusion is I do not understand this topic, but there are multiple premises. One premise leads to one conclusion. That conclusion becomes premise for another conclusion. And this is how it goes. So this is why it is different. So in such questions, what will happen? You're moving from one block to another. You have to understand, or you have to identify from which block to another block the jump is not logical. So for example, let's say I, as Mentors Capital, was using imitators, singers, Sonu Nigam ki आवाज में या अरिजीत सिंह की आवाज में, some imitator was promoting our brand. So now I have lost the lawsuit, which means now I have to have hire original singer. Let's say Arijit Singh, right? Arijit Singh, let's say this one, fees are high, definitely because he's original singer. And therefore, my advertising cost will go up. So this is what the chain of events. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So from which box to another box, you think the jump is not logical? I lost a lawsuit. I have to hire an original singer now. Original singer's cost is high, the fee is high, so my advertising cost will go up. So from which box to which box the jump is not logical? Yes, from 1 to 2. See, I've lost a lawsuit. So is it necessary for me to continue using songs to promote my brand? I may not use songs anymore, right? मैं सिर्फ dialogue use करूँगा, अमिताभ बच्चन की आवाज में मैं बुलवा रहा हूँ अपने brand को. I can do that. So there's no compulsion on me to use songs. So for these chain of events to make sense, between this box 1 and 2, I have to assume that I continue using songs to promote my brand. Because if I don't use songs anymore, I won't need original singer. I don't have to pay him more. And therefore, my advertising cost will not rise because of this lawsuit. So the assumption is, after losing a lawsuit, I continued using songs, which is choice number E. Yeah. So guys, assumption, as I said, is the toughest part of CR of critical reasoning. Till now, I've done 3 questions earlier. 3 were repeated here. So total of 8 questions. I'll have 2 more classes on assumptions. And I think that should take care of this. The prime skill that you need to develop for this question is pre-thinking. If you're not able to pre-think, that means logically you're not there. Even if you get your questions right, तुक्के से सही हो सकता है. But assumption, the basic check is whether I was able to pre-think the answer or not. Thank you.
We at Mentors Capital have curated the best test series for you. We can confidently claim that our test series is best in the market. So go and see it for yourself. Remember, coaching kahin se bhi. Test series from Mentors Capital.